There is a tape. There is a check. There is a 14-year-old girl on a private plane, and nobody, not one of the people who could have stopped it, picked up the phone. That is the sentence that has the entire internet frozen this week. Because Jaguar Wright sat down, looked dead into the camera, and didn't whisper a single word. She named names, she named places, she named times, she named amounts. And the second the name Rihanna left her mouth, every gossip page, every drama channel, every reaction account, every quiet little corner of TikTok lit up at the exact same second, like somebody flipped a switch on a city. And I need you to understand something before we go 1 inch further. This is not a regular gossip cycle. This is not a love triangle. This is not a divorce rumor. This is not a leaked DM. This is a fully grown woman on camera, looking at the lens like it owes her money. And she is laying down a series of statements that if any one of them lands in a courtroom, will change the next 10 years of the music business. You can feel that even if you mute the audio. You can feel it in the way her shoulders sit. You can feel it in the way she pauses between names. She is not guessing. She is remembering. So let's get into it, because what is actually being alleged here and what is being conveniently left out by half the people reporting on it is so much darker than a regular industry rumor that I had to sit with the clips for almost an hour before I felt ready to even open my mouth. Here is what Jaguar Wright is putting on the table. She is saying that a teenage girl, barely 15 years old, was flown out of her home country without her parents, without a guardian, without a lawyer, without anybody watching her back, by a man who allegedly auditioned her at 3 a.m. in a hotel room on her own island. 3 a.m., a child, a grown man, a hotel. No mother, no father, no second adult in the room with a clipboard and a conscience. And the part that broke me, the part I keep coming back to, is the detail about the conference room. 6 hours, almost 6 full hours. A teenager left alone in a closed room with a fully grown, fully powerful, fully connected music executive. And the father, the one person whose only job on this planet was to stand between his daughter and that door, didn't walk through it until 24 hours later. And when he did walk through it, he was not asking for his child. He was asking for a check. $500,000. Signed, sealed, cashed. That is not a rumor. That is a sentence. A literal sentence Jaguar Wright spoke into a microphone. And the receipts she is gesturing toward are the same receipts the entire industry has been pretending to forget about for over 15 years. Now, before anybody clips this and runs with half the story, I have to say what every honest commentator is obligated to say. These are allegations. These are public claims being made in an interview. These are not court findings. Nobody has been convicted of anything. Rihanna has not responded. Jay-Z has not responded. Evan Rogers has not responded. The label has not responded. And in this country, you are innocent until 12 people in a jury box decide otherwise. But here is the part nobody wants to admit out loud. Allegations do not need a courtroom to change the way the world looks at somebody. Allegations only need oxygen. And right now, this story has all the oxygen on the internet. Let me back up and walk you through how this even reached the boiling point it is at today, because the timeline matters. Jaguar Wright is not a stranger to this conversation. She has been screaming into the void for years about what she says happens to young artists behind closed doors. And for years, she was treated like the crazy aunt at the cookout. Dismissed, mocked, memed, pushed off panels, cut out of rooms. People told her she was bitter, she was unstable, she was clout chasing, she was unwell. Every single thing somebody could say to make a black woman shut up was thrown at her. And she did not shut up. Not one time. And then Diddy happened. Then the federal indictments happened. Then the videos started leaking. Then the lawsuits started stacking on top of each other like dirty plates in a sink that nobody wanted to wash. And suddenly, the same internet that called Jaguar a liar started quietly going back through her old interviews with a highlighter and a notepad. Because everything she said years ago is now sitting in a federal docket, word for word. So when she sits down this week and says, by the way, Jay-Z is next, and oh, by the way, Rihanna's story does not add up, you cannot dismiss her the way you used to. The receipts have caught up to her mouth. Here is the specific quote that detonated the whole thing. She said, and I want you to hear this slowly, that Evan Rogers, the producer credited with discovering Rihanna, only ever seemed to work on what she called teeny bopper projects. She said he found a teenage girl on her island. She said the audition happened at 3 a.m. in a hotel room. She said the girl was put on a private plane. She said the girl was flown from one country to another country with no parental supervision. She said the girl ended up in a boardroom with Mr. Carter alone for hours. She said the father showed up a day later, not for her daughter, but for a check. And then she asked the question that is currently destroying timelines. Y'all got young children? Would you let your 15-year-old daughter get on a plane with a man you have never met, fly to a foreign country, sit alone in a room with a billionaire, and only see her again 24 hours later with a $500,000 bag in your hand? Would you? The internet answered. The internet said no. That is the moment the conversation stopped being about Rihanna the pop star and started being about Robin the child. Because for a decade and a half, we have been clapping at performances, buying perfumes, refreshing Fenty drops, replaying the Super Bowl, celebrating the babies, and almost nobody has gone back to the very first chapter of the book and asked the most basic question a human being should ask. How exactly did this little girl from a tiny island end up signed to one of the biggest labels in the world before she was old enough to drive? I am not telling you what to believe. I am telling you that the question is finally being asked out loud, and you can hear it in every comment section, every duet, every stitch, every reply video. People are not laughing at Jaguar anymore. They are scrolling silently. And I want to be transparent with you, because I would rather lose subscribers than lie to your face. I went and pulled up 6 of the biggest celebrity commentary channels on this platform before I sat down to record. Channels with 1 million plus. Channels that drop a video every 24 hours like clockwork. Channels that covered every micro detail of every micro drama for the last 6 months straight, and not one of them, as of the minute I am hitting record, has put out a single video on this interview. Not a short, not a community post, not a tweet, nothing. 6 channels. 0 coverage on the biggest celebrity name a black female whistleblower has dropped in a decade. You tell me what that means. I have my own theory, but you have eyes too. Now let me talk about the part nobody on the major drama channels wants to touch. The album cover. Anti. Go pull it up. I'll wait. A little girl, a crown tilted over her face, her eyes covered, blood, or what looks like blood, smeared across the bottom half of the picture, a child silhouette holding a black balloon. Critics called it art, reviewers called it iconic, fashion blogs called it bold. Almost nobody in the entire rollout cycle of that album paused and said out loud, hey, why is the visual language of this campaign a child bride with her face covered? Why? Jaguar pointed at that cover this week and said maybe we should look at it again. Maybe the artist was telling us something the entire time and we were all too busy dancing to work to read the page. I am not saying she is right. I am saying I cannot unsee it now, and neither can the 4 million people who reposted that cover side by side with the interview clip in the last 72 hours.
Let me say something that is going to make some of you uncomfortable. There is a pattern in this industry, and the pattern is not a conspiracy theory. The pattern is the public record. Foxy Brown was a child when she was signed. Aaliyah was a child when she was signed. The list of girls who walked into a boardroom before they had a driver's license and walked out with a contract their parents could not legally read is longer than any of us want to count. These are babies. That is the word Jaguar kept using. Babies. Being moved, being shuffled, being passed around, being introduced to grown men with grown contracts. And every time one of them grew up and tried to talk about it, the machine spun up a new story, a new scandal, a new distraction, a new pretty headline, until the original wound was buried under 20 layers of red carpet. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and try to put yourself in that conference room with her. The lights are fluorescent, the carpet is industrial gray, the table is too big for the room, there is a pitcher of water somebody filled 3 hours ago and nobody's drinking, there is a clock on the wall that is silent, but you can feel every minute it eats. The door has one of those long, horizontal handles that you have to pull down on, and from the inside, with no adult next to you, it feels heavier than it is. She does not know what time her dad is landing. She does not know if her dad is landing. She does not know anybody's last name in the room next door. She is 15 years old in a foreign country, and her phone, if she even has one, is not connected to a network that means anything here. Sit with that. That is the picture Jaguar is asking us to look at. And once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. And you cannot dance to anything from that era the same way ever again. Jaguar made another point that absolutely gutted me. She said, look at the YouTubers who are not talking. Look at the gossip channels that suddenly went quiet this week. Look at the people who will cover a Kardashian sneeze in a 15-minute video, but will not say a single syllable about a federal file with a billionaire's name on it. She said, if you want to know who is compromised, watch the silence. Watch who shuts their mouth the second the wrong name gets typed into a thumbnail. That sentence is going to live in my head rent-free for a month. There's also the Solange angle. Remember the elevator? Of course you remember the elevator. Everybody remembers the elevator. Jaguar brought up the fact that at the exact same moment a grown woman was screaming inside that metal box, a teenage girl was standing on a stage thanking her parents, and a billionaire walked up to the microphone and corrected her. Thank me, he said. Thank me. Not them, me. A child thanking her mother and father for raising her, and a grown man in a black suit with a hand on the mic redirecting the gratitude to himself. You can call that ego. You can call that humor. You can call that a moment lost in time, or you can stop and ask why a man old enough to be her father was so determined to insert himself into the most innocent sentence a young artist can say into a microphone. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Why was that not allowed to be the whole sentence? I want to be careful here because the line between commentary and accusation is thin, and I am not going to cross it. I am not saying anyone is guilty of anything that has not been proven in a court of law. I am saying the public has eyes, the public has receipts, the public has a phone with a camera and a memory that does not go away just because a publicist sends out a press release. Now, I know somebody is already typing in my comments that I'm reaching, that I'm projecting, that I'm taking one woman's word and building a cathedral on it. So let me do something that almost nobody on this platform bothers to do. Let me steel man the other side. Let me argue against myself for a minute, because if I cannot hold both sides of this in my own head, I have no business asking you to.
Possibility 1. Jaguar Wright is wrong. She is misremembering. She is confusing one artist's story with another's. She is filling gaps in her own knowledge with worst-case assumptions. The audition at 3 in the morning was actually at 3 in the afternoon, and the time got mangled in a retelling. The conference room was not empty. The father was on the plane the whole time and just stepped out for a smoke. There is a reasonable, boring, paperwork version of this story where everything was legal, everything was supervised, everything was fine, and the only crime was a teenager being signed too young, which is sad but is not technically a felony. Possibility 2. Jaguar Wright is exactly right. The room was empty. The plane was unsupervised. The father was a day late. The check was real. The audition was at 3 in the morning. The conference room was closed. The label knew. The lawyers knew. The publicists knew. And every single person who has ever profited off the Rihanna machine has been quietly hoping for 15 years that nobody with a microphone and a memory ever sat down in a chair and said it out loud on tape. Both of those possibilities are sitting in front of you right now. I am not going to pick one for you. I am going to ask you to pick one for yourself, and to ask yourself honestly which one your gut chooses before your loyalty kicks in. Because the loyalty is the trap. The loyalty is what kept Diddy free for 30 years. The loyalty is what is keeping 100 other men comfortable tonight. Loyalty to a brand is not the same thing as loyalty to a person, and a teenager in a closed room is a person, not a brand. Let's pivot to the legal layer for a second, because this is where it gets interesting, and a lot of the smaller channels are getting it wrong. Trafficking is not a vibe. Trafficking is a federal statute.
the transportation of a minor across state lines or international borders for the purpose of commercial benefit without proper parental consent and supervision is a crime with a specific name, a specific punishment, and no statute of limitations in many jurisdictions when the victim is a child. I am not a lawyer. I am telling you what is publicly available in federal code. Google it yourself. Do not take my word for anything. Let me explain something about how a record deal actually closes, because most people watching have never been in a room with one of these contracts and have a fairy tale idea of what they look like. A standard major label artist agreement for a new signing runs anywhere from 60 to 240 pages depending on the label, the year, and the leverage. There are riders, there are options, there are recoupment clauses. There are 360 splits on merch, touring, sync, publishing, image rights, and in some cases, your name itself for a defined number of years. A trained entertainment lawyer charges between $500 and $1,500 an hour to read one of these documents properly, and a careful read takes a week. A teenager, alone, in a foreign country with no representation, does not read a document like that. A teenager signs where the pen points. That is the mechanic. That is the machine. And if a parent shows up a day later and the only thing they ask to see is the check, the contract has already been signed by a child who did not know what page 84 said. Page 84 is usually where they put the rights you cannot ever get back. What Jaguar is describing in plain English is not an unflattering anecdote about a record deal. What she is describing, if a single sentence of it can be proven in a court of law, is a federal case. And that is why every PR team in the industry is reportedly working overtime this week. That is why timelines are getting scrubbed. That is why old interviews are getting privated on official channels. That is why certain podcast clips that lived on YouTube for 10 years are suddenly disappearing. You can watch it happen in real time if you know where to look. Somebody in my comments yesterday asked the question that I think is actually the heart of this whole thing. They said, "Why does this matter now? She is rich. She is famous. She is fine. She has babies. She has billions. Why are we digging?" I want to answer that as honestly as I can. We are not digging because we want to ruin her. We are digging because if the story of the most successful pop star of a generation actually begins with a 15-year-old girl, a private plane, a closed door, and a check, then every single 15-year-old girl who is signing a contract this week, next year, is walking into a room with the same door on the same hinges. The door has not changed. The luck has not changed. The men with the keys have not changed. If we do not talk about how the first door opened, we will not notice when it opens again. And it is opening again. Right now, on a soundstage you have never heard of, with a girl whose name you do not know yet, whose mother just signed a paper she did not read. That is why this matters. Not because of one woman, because of the 1,000 girls behind her that nobody is famous enough to protect. Now, let me come back to Jaguar herself, because I have seen the comments. I see you. I see the people saying she's bitter. I see the people saying she's unstable. I see the people saying she's making it up for clout. And here's what I will say. You do not have to like the messenger to read the message. You do not have to invite her to your barbecue to acknowledge that every single major story she predicted on the record before there was a single indictment has now been corroborated by federal paperwork. Every single one. She told us about Diddy years before the lawsuits. She told us about the parties. She told us about the names in the files. She told us about who was on the boats and who was at the houses and who flew on which plane. And the entire internet laughed until the entire internet read the docket. So when she tells us this week that Jay-Z should not be sleeping comfortably tonight, that Evan Rogers is a name we should remember, that Auntie was a cover for Help written in lipstick, I am not going to be the one who laughs. I have been wrong before. I am not going to be wrong twice. There's one more clip I need to talk about before we close this out, because if you missed it, you missed the most chilling 60 seconds of the entire interview. Jaguar was asked in plain language whether she thinks the rumors are true. She did not flinch, she did not soften it, she did not hedge. She said, "It sounds that way." And then she said, because her father did not show up for 24 hours, and when he did, it was for a check. That is the sentence. That's the whole movie compressed into one breath. A father, a daughter, a day late, a check. I want you to picture that for a second. Picture being 14, 15 years old. Picture getting on a plane with a man you barely know. Picture landing in a country you have never been to. Picture being walked into a glass building. Picture being placed in a room. Picture watching the door close. Picture waiting. Picture wondering when your dad is coming. Picture realizing he's not coming today. Picture realizing he might be coming tomorrow. Picture realizing that when he comes, he's not coming for you. Now picture being told for the next 15 years of your life that this is the greatest fairy tale in the history of pop music. That is the cognitive dissonance the internet is choking on this week. That is why the clips keep autoplaying. That is why the duets keep multiplying. That is why even the people who don't want to believe it cannot stop watching it. Before I wrap, I want to address the people in my chat who keep typing the same comment. Why isn't TMZ covering this? Why isn't the major press picking this up? Why are the big platforms silent? Jaguar answered that too. She said, "Watch who is not talking." She named Harvey Levin. She said his name is in the files. She said the platforms that profit off celebrity scandal go strangely quiet whenever the scandal touches the wrong wallet. I am not telling you what's in any file.
I am telling you what she said, on camera, in front of the world. You can pull the clip up yourself. It is not hard to find, or at least it was not hard to find this morning. Check back tonight. I am curious how findable it stays. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a teenage girl who became a global icon and a question that nobody in the inner circle is willing to answer in public. It leaves us with an album cover that suddenly looks like a cry for help. It leaves us with a father who collected a check. It leaves us with a billionaire who allegedly sat in a room with a child for 6 hours. It leaves us with a producer who allegedly auditioned a minor at 3 in the morning. It leaves us with a music industry that has been promising for 30 years to do better and has done nothing of the kind. It leaves us with one woman with a microphone and a memory who refuses to be embarrassed into silence. And it leaves us with you, the viewer, the person who is going to decide, comment by comment, share by share, repost by repost, whether this story gets buried by Monday or whether it finally drags everyone involved into the daylight they have been hiding from for 15 years. I am not here to tell you what to believe. I am here to make sure you heard it. Because the next time somebody on TV calls this a fairy tale, the next time a documentary opens with that little girl singing into a hairbrush, the next time a magazine writes the words self-made and prints them under her picture, I want you to remember the room. I want you to remember the plane. I want you to remember the check. I want you to remember that the father was 24 hours late and the door was closed the whole time he was missing. Tell me in the comments, do you believe Jaguar Wright? Do you think there is something to Auntie that we all collectively chose not to see? Do you think the silence from the major outlets is normal, or is it the loudest sound in the room right now?
And most importantly, who do you think is next? Because if Jaguar's track record holds, the next name she drops is going to be on a federal docket within 18 months, and I would rather be the channel that talked about it early than the channel that pretended it never happened. Hit subscribe if you want the follow-up. I am working on a part 2 that goes deeper into Evan Rogers, into the contract structure of that original deal, into the parental waiver paperwork, and into the exact timeline of who was in the building on the day she signed. That video is going to be uncomfortable. Watch it anyway. The girls coming up behind her deserve at least that much from us. And one last thing before I let you go. If you are a parent, a guardian, an older sibling, or even a friend of somebody under 18 with a dream and a TikTok account and a manager sliding into the DMs, please screenshot this video. Please send it. Please use it as the ugly little conversation starter you have been putting off. The next teenager on a private plane is going to be somebody's kid. Make sure she is not yours, and make sure her father is not late. I will see you in the next one. Stay loud, stay sharp, and stop clapping for stories you have not finished reading. Bye.